All right, friends, we are back together for another great conversation about broken signposts. We're kind of using N.T. Wright's book to dive deeper into the ways that maybe we have just kind of lost what it means to be a part of this world and a part of our bodies in our full capacity, and sensing God in our world too, through some different signposts. So we've talked about spirituality. That was our last two. Then we also began with justice. Today, we are talking about beauty. Mm-hmm. And I just wonder if together, what if we could be people who were committed to embodying beauty? Mm-hmm. Because for my generation, that's really hard to do. Mm-hmm. It is so hard to allow yourself to think that you're beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Mm. You know? Mm-hmm. It's hard. Mm-hmm. Social media has made it hard. Television has made it hard. Magazines have made it hard. And then it's like so weird because the standards of beauty are changing.
Yeah, they're transient.
Oh my goodness, like hello, low-rise jeans are back? What? That is...
Are they?
They are.
I thought they were high-rise again.
Well, yes.
See, I can't keep up.
Exactly.
It's transient.
It's transient.
Yeah. And
well,
so,
could it be transcendent? Is there an opportunity? Can beauty actually? Can we get beyond the beauty in the eye of the beholder concept? And can beauty actually be transcendent?
Yeah, I want to talk more about that.
Because how do you know what beauty is?
Yeah.
And what makes beauty beauty? And how do we know that as human beings? And I think it does come from a transcendent, beautiful one.
All right. So, but what do you think is beautiful, Jamie?
You know, I love nature.
Yeah.
So I love to be outside. So anything, you know, we just got back from Canada, from the Canadian Rockies, and doing a lot of hiking, and it was beautiful there. I mean, it was just beauty everywhere you turn, right? I mean,
unblemished, sort of.
Yeah, because we were deep in the mountains at some point, and just seeing, you know, these glacier lakes that were untouched, you know, and so it was, there's a lot of beauty.
When you're in a place like that, do you feel a reverence and awe, a wonder that connects you to the divine, to God? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, St. Augustine talked about this concept. He was one of the church fathers, and he talked about this idea, this divine spark in all of us, and that that there's a longing, there's this, and that's what N.T. Wright talks about in The Signpost, but there is this longing for us for beauty. I mean, whether it is in high-rise or low-rise jeans or whatever you were saying earlier, but there is this longing for beauty, and that lives in each of us, and Augustine calls that divine spark that really connects us and reminds us that we are connected to God.
Yeah, I've had people tell me, you know, I don't go to church because my church is in the woods, my church is on the mountaintop, or my church is at the beach, sitting by the ocean and just experiencing God there. And I think there's value in what they're saying. I do think there's beauty inside the walls of the church too, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later when we're talking about seeing the beauty in one another. Mm-hmm. But as a culture, do you think we're hyper-focused on outer beauty? Yes, I mean that's
yeah,
duh.
I think so.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just so funny and sad because I think before, you know, maybe in the early 2000s, our hyperfixation on beauty was this one image. And you had to be this size 0. You had to have this blonde hair, fair skin. That was your definition of beauty. And since the early 2000s, you know, that definition of beauty has changed.
Yeah.
And you
for the better,
really.
The better,
yeah. I think, you know, there's a lot
body
more
image
embrace of body sizes and body types that look different than that ideal body image of the early 2000s, late 90s. And, you know, I think that social media has played a role in that, for better or for worse, because there is still this standard of beauty that people are trying to meet that we just see constantly before us because of social media, magazines, billboards, TV, everything.
No, so physical appearance, but you know, when I was talking to you, you said something about was it Aquinas who talks about the beauty of a life. Like, we we work in a church, and we have people that we love and we care for, and we watch them live their lives, and then they pass away, and we do a funeral. And many times, as I sit there, I think to myself, "What a beautiful life!" And so that's sort of a different level of beauty.
Yeah. Thomas Aquinas talks about there's really two types of beauty. He might have said more, but I know at least, there's what we know as beauty that we experience, that this outward appearance of beauty, whether that be an individual, a person, or it be a landscape or nature or whatever. But there's also, he called a moral beauty. A virtuous life is a beautiful life. A life where, it's a life of integrity, a life of character, a life of someone who just, it seems like they're just connected in such a way, authentic.
And integrated.
Okay,
Integrated.
so let's talk about that for just a little bit. Fake beauty. Because I love what Dolly Parton says. She says, it takes a lot of money to look this cheap. And so, like you're talking about, tell me about the thing when you were in the restaurant with.
Oh yeah. So Sharon and I went to dinner one time, and I'm sitting there, and I'm just being nosy, like I'm always nosy. And there was this beautiful plant like across the restaurant, and it was amazing. It was exquisite. It was bright. It was colorful. And it just kept catching my eye. And I told Sharon, look how beautiful that plant is. I wonder what they're feeding that plant. I wonder how much water they have to get. I'm just like fascinated with this plant, right? And I just was amazed by and just at awe with how beautiful it was and the color. And I get up to leave, and I go over there, and I touch it, and it's fake. And I'm like, man, I felt let down.
Right.
I felt disappointed because it wasn't real.
Okay, so I want to talk about that for just a little bit. Have you ever had an experience where you thought something was so beautiful and then it wasn't real?
Yeah, I feel like that, like social media, again, for me now, it's like AI can make something look totally different than it actually is. You can go into different programs and say, I want a sunset as a backdrop, and all of a sudden you are standing in front of a sunset where before you were standing in front of a hazy skyline, And so for me, when I found out, oh, this picture is artificial intelligence, that's a letdown for me, because I'm like, oh, I was admiring the beauty of the colors and the background. But also there's a level of going back to your statement about beauty with people. When you interact with someone and they appear to be beautiful on the outside, and I'm not talking about physical looks, but I'm talking about the way that they make their life look on the outside. And then you have a conversation with them, or you learn a little bit more about who they really are, and their life isn't as beautiful. And so then you start to question whether or not you actually really knew the person.
Yeah, I'm I'm thinking of Brad Paisley's song. It was like, I'm so much better looking online. I don't know if you ever heard that song, but in online dating, if anybody's doing online dating, just comment below, because you have seen, if you're doing online dating, you're running the gamut of this is the image and this is the reality. And everyone's dealing in this gap between this beauty and what's really happening. And so that can really feel like a broken signpost.
Yeah.
When do you even believe your own eyes anymore, right? And
can you let your heart feel what it wants to feel looking at that beautiful plant or that beautiful person or that beautiful lifestyle when, it comes to find out it's all fake. It's all social media curated, or it's all, plastic surgery made or whatever. That does something to you internally when you get to see behind the curtain of what this supposed beauty is. It's hard. There's an inner thing that's happening because it's a letdown of what you thought beauty was.
But
Well,
go
and
ahead.
I think I get that. I totally get that, right? But at the same time, beauty is also one of those things that we just can't capture. No matter what. Like I can stand at the edge of the ocean and I think, man, that's beautiful. I mean, it's a beautiful ocean. But that same water can turn into a tsunami and kill thousands of people.
Yeah.
So I think beauty is not something that we can just bottle up and capture. There is beauty goes along with suffering, and it goes along with challenges of life, and it goes along with the just. So I think, again, I get that, but I think sometimes I wonder sometimes if trying to cover it up is that just some people being safe for some people.
Yeah, and you bring an excellent point with your plant image too, because you said that the plant was beautiful, and just because it wasn't real, it was still beautiful, in its own way.
In its own way.
And so I think you're right.
It was visually, I will say this, it was visually appealing.
Yes.
So I think there's a difference between visually appealing, attractive, and actual beauty. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about what does beauty in our world say about God and Jesus? Like, where does Christianity intersect with beauty? I mean, have you been in let's think about that for a second. It's like, the world, standing at the edge of the ocean, the Grand Canyon, being in Canada, you had a sense of God is creator. When I see sometimes in the mornings when I'm walking and I see the sunrise and I'm like, God is with me. I see God in this. But what is it saying about God, do you think, when we notice and we have beauty? First, I think it says he loves us. He doesn't have to be this pretty here.
Yeah.
And
I think, I mean, it goes beyond more than just God as creator. I think the way we need to read the Genesis passage about the creation story is that God is the artist. And if you read, a zebra, who would have ever thought about that? A giraffe, you think about the uniqueness of some of these creatures and flowers and all of that. If you'd have left it up to me, I'd have made every flower the same color, and every animal would have looked like a dog. So, I just think that's so it's not so much as God as creator, it's God as the ultimate artist.
It makes me think of the moon, because the moon is not its own source of light, but the moon reflects light from the sun, and yet we see the light from the moon. And so it's just, for me, that's how I understand so much of the beauty in creation, is it's just reflecting back the ultimate beauty that we see in who God is. And the way that we get to know more of what that beauty is by just looking up and looking out. But I think that we, as image bearers of God, get to reflect that beauty too in the world around us, in our own way.
All right, as we start to kind of land the plane on part one of beauty, we haven't really talked about what the Bible says about beauty, so let's do that in the next segment. But let's talk about us as image bearers for just a minute, and then I want to talk about more of that in the second part. But as an image bearer, we get this awesome, I'm going to call it a responsibility, to be the light reflector. So I'm going to be a moon.
Be
the moon. Okay.
Yeah. And it is, I love that you said responsibility. Mm-hmm. I believe it is a responsibility. And we get to be responsible beauty bearers. We get to also be responsible participants in beauty. The world is so magnificent in what is happening. I think it's so easy to look out and see death and doom and gloom and decay and harshness. And that's very present in this world. But
yeah, N.T. Wright talks about that. He said there's no poetry in Auschwitz. There's no poetry after, that this sort of brutal, dark, harsh world, a lot of our art nowadays is reflecting that. Yeah.
And it's very real. It exists. We cannot deny that. And yet, I believe that God is constantly creating new beauty in our world. And yet I also think that there is beauty that has always existed that we have turned a blind eye to. We have become numb. For some reason, we don't see it. And as followers of Jesus, we get to participate in bringing about beauty, reflecting the beauty of the world, reflecting the beauty of Jesus, of humanity, all the good things of what beauty is. We get to be practitioners and participants in, and that's fun.
Yeah, and you were in person worship. We're talking about Wendell Berry this Sunday, and he would say, maybe you can elaborate on this since you're doing the deep dive, but that we have a responsibility as protectors of beauty as Christians. And I think we don't always connect those dots. Can you talk about that a little bit?
That's great, yes.
No, I think we do have a responsibility to, because there's beauty that exists all around. And part of what creation care is all about is preserving the beauty that we have. I mean, preserving the beauty we've been entrusted. We're called to be stewards of that beauty, and to steward the beauty that God has gifted us. And so when we pollute the oceans and the world around us, I mean, we're not living into the image of the artist who created us.
Yeah.
So what would it look like? How do I steward? I think that a good question to end on would be something like, am I stewarding the beauty that God has entrusted to me in my own personal life? And
And do I have eyes to see it?
yeah.
Yeah. And then take care of it.
Wow. Ooh, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, friends, thanks for tuning in for another Together What If. And I hope that you will tune back here with us next week as we dive deeper into part 2 of the broken signpost of beauty. Until then, I invite you to like and share this video or this podcast. And as always, friends, we'll see you next time.
I could hide myself away somewhere safe, far from pain. But if I refuse to feel, well, I'll never bleed, but I'll never heal. And I hear Jesus calling me out of the grave I've been sleeping in, and with new lungs I'll begin again. I'll lift my voice and I'll sing my part, 'cause this is the sound of a living heart. And I have found a better life, oh, my hero and the cause, and every tear will be redeemed in the hands of God. Oh, I hear Jesus calling me out of the grave I've been sleeping in. With new lungs I'll begin again. I'll lift my voice and I'll sing my part, 'cause this is the sound of a living heart. This is the sound of my living heart. Oh, thank you, God.